What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Embrace the Opposite. I'm your host, Andrew Wormsley. In this episode, we're going to talk about relationships and intimacy, what it is, why it's important, and really how can intimacy help us go further and become more successful in our relationships. Now, before we get into the video, couple things I need to get out of the way. Please like and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button down at the bottom so you're getting the updates on the different videos. And guys, please comment. I love talking about relationships. I love learning new things, and I can do that through you guys interacting with me. Please comment in the sections below and let me know what you're thinking about these topics. So the other thing I want to mention is, for me, I have a very, very strict goal and specific goal for my marriage and my relationship. And that's the acronym Be Swell. BSWEL. And that stands for the best spouse who ever lived. That's what I want to be, plain and simple. I'm not out here trying to say that I'm better than anyone else. I have a competitive background from playing basketball, so for me, I want to be the best. I want to be the best partner for my wife that I could be. I want to know her to the best degree that I can. Everything at my disposal, my mind, my heart, my sight, my hearing, the internet, anything that I can use to become a better spouse to her, I'm going to do. And so that's why I go and I roll with the acronym Best Spouse Who Ever Lived. And so on this channel, that's really what we're going for here, guys. I'm not trying to maintain a mediocre relationship. I want the most out of my relationship, and I hope that you guys do too. So that's really what we're going to be pushing for on this channel. Now, intimacy. So look this up because I'm curious, so I always like to go back and see where did this word come from, what are the root meanings and these sorts of things. So like many words in the English language, intimacy derived from the Greek and then the Latin. In both the Greek and the Latin terms, there's this idea of becoming familiar with or to impress on oneself. And that's really what is at the heart of intimacy. So we're not going to talk physical intimacy in this video. That'll be the next one, and that's a huge one. But there are many types of intimacy. There's emotional, there's intellectual, there's spiritual intimacy. And you can have these things with all people. With your special someone, your spouse, your life partner, you want to drive to find the most intimacy with. Reason being is, and I like to relate this to a space, right? So we all have spaces in our lives, like physical spaces that we would find ourselves in, that we would be very comfortable in. For me, that was my room as a child. It was just the perfect place for me. I had video games, I had comic books, anything and everything that I would want. I could spend hours in my room and just be at ease and be comfortable. But the other thing about that experience and about that space was that I knew that room intimately. I knew where everything was. If it got dark or the lights went out, I wasn't tripping over anything or stubbing my toe on any dressers or beds or anything like that, because I knew the space. I think a lot of times in relationships, because things don't come natural, because we don't automatically vibe with that other person, we tend to put up the blockade and we tend to say, well, we're just different in that way, and that's just how we see things differently. Well, what if you were driving that idea to not let it present any obstacles? What if you were going forward and you were going to say, whatever obstacle's there, I'm going to figure out a way to break through? And I think that's what we have to do in our relationships, guys. Intimacy is being familiar with. It's almost as if you've taken that person into yourself and you've embraced that person. I think a lot about water when it comes to this. You know, Bruce Lee has this famous quote or interview where he's talking about water, and he's like, water can, you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water in a bowl, it becomes the bowl. Be like water, my friend. And I like that because water is very intimate. Water, whatever it is inside of it becomes. It mimics and it becomes the identity of that other being. And it knows, or that other bowl or cup or whatever it is, and it knows the nooks and crannies and the curves and the structure and everything, right? So it fills that space completely. And I think that's how we need to look at our relationships. We need to not hit a wall and stop there. We need to develop the type of transparency, the type of conversations, the type of relationships that really is going to drive that other person to let down their guard and for us to let down our guard. So one of the things that my wife and I do that we think has really helped us in this area is the communication piece. You know, when we're upset with one another, it's very easy to you know, not say anything and just act differently and kind of not be as kind and considerate to that other person because they've done something to us earlier in the day or something that they were oblivious to. And that's the worst. I mean, let's be honest. When our partners do something to us and they don't know that they did, man, I mean, I can't stand that. It's really aggravating. But there's a way that we can do the pre-work, or there's a way that we can do the work before that can eliminate that. And so that's sitting down with your partner and saying, hey, last week we had a couple issues. I want to prevent that from happening moving forward. I want to know you. I want to know what upsets you. I want to know what brings you joy. And I want to be an advocate for that in our lives. So you sit down before you have that argument or before you get upset, and you share about best practices in dealing with the aggravation. So I'm going to come to you and I'm going to share what it is that's upsetting me instead of keeping my mouth shut and just acting a little bit more cold towards you. And I would like you to do the same to me. What this does is this creates transparency. So one thing it creates is, this is a communication tactic we're going to move forward with. And two, it creates transparency because now instead of acting a certain way that we are cold and standoffish to our partners, we're communicating with them about what's hurting inside. This is how we do the work before the storm with intimacy. It's about sharing what we feel, not being afraid to share what we feel, and identifying that with the other person. Because the other person has a choice. You know, they can take that information in and they can say, okay, I'm going to remember that for next time. I'm going to remember to speak instead of giving you the silent treatment. Or I'm going to remember to speak, to share how I'm feeling instead of not doing that thing that you wanted to do over the weekend. So it's creating a little bit more intimacy between you and your partner. But I think a lot of the work has to come from internally, from what you are willing to do to create intimacy in that relationship. So you have to be willing to share about yourself, about your fears, about what you want to do in your life, your joys, your accomplishments. You have to be willing to share those things. And the other person has to be able to respond to those things in a positive manner. If you think about a world or a planet, gosh, how many things in this world have we not explored? How many areas are we still doing research on after all these years that we've been here? All the years that human beings have existed on this planet, and we still don't know it intimately. We are becoming to know it better, but we don't know it to the degree that we should. And really, that's the journey that you're on with your life partner or your spouse. You want to be continually learning about them, about what makes them happy, what makes them sad, and you want to commit that to memory so that next time around you can frame your conversation, you can frame your disagreement, your argument, or you can frame the acts of kindness that you do for that person based on who they are. And another thing to keep in mind, intimacy is always going to be moving because people change. People have things that they are, ways that they are like in the first 5 years of a relationship, and then that can be completely different in the second 5 years of a relationship. And so you're continuing to learn about this person. You're asking questions. It's always good to have a nice question, which is a great question for a new couple with an icebreaker. Tell me something I don't know about you. But continue that information with your spouse that you've been with for 5 years. So guys, that's what I wanted to share about intimacy. Keep in mind that you need to stay motivated and you need to make sure that a relationship, if you truly want to be successful, a relationship is always going to be progressing, and it's always going to be something that you're going to have to commit to 110% if you want to be successful. Guys, I hope that was helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and comment. Next week, we're going to be talking about physical intimacy, and it's going to be a good one. I got some interesting things to share on that one. Be swell, embrace the opposite, and we'll holler at you guys later. Peace.